Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Thursday, February 1st, 2018. I'm Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. Dayton gray, Indianapolis gray. Let's move on. Recruiting center stage. We're a few days away from the National Signing Day, second one sort of. So it's time to bring in Steve Wiltfong. We're going to rehash the names because things have changed. Nothing stays static here at Ohio State. Steve, how are you this fine morning?
Well, what's crazy, Dan, is that Ohio State signed the best pound-for-pound recruiting class in the country last year in 24/7 sports history, and they're on track to be better than that this year. And a couple teams, the top teams are really loading up with the top talent this year.
Yeah, the number 2 team's going to break the record that they had last year as well.
We'll see. We'll see who some of these teams finish with, but yeah, it's best pound-for-pound class ever is in the mix again, and Ohio State's leading the charge in that regard. They're number 1 in the 24/7 sports recruiting rankings, and trying to unseat Alabama's 7-year run. The last head coach to finish number 1 in the 24/7 sports recruiting rankings was not named Nick Saban as Urban Meyer at Florida.
Wow. That would be kind of cool to sandwich those two together here. Let's talk about how the Buckeyes can solidify that. You know the names, everybody. We're just going to kind of do a checklist here because there's been some changes. I'll admit, I saw some crystal balls for Nicholas Petit-Frere to go to Alabama last week, and my heart sunk. Thankfully, that crisis has been averted. Can you bring us an update on arguably the number 1 offensive tackle in the country?
Well, I don't think anyone knows for sure what the nation's number 1 offensive tackle, 5-star Nicholas Petit-Frere from Tampa Berkeley Prep is going to do. So maybe he'll still go to Bama. But the buzz I'm hearing is that Notre Dame and Florida are in a good spot, and Ohio State, no one's sleeping on the Buckeyes. And Ohio State's getting the last visit this weekend. So I could rehash all the Greg Schiano stuff, but everyone knows it.
Sure.
I think Notre Dame and Florida are in a good spot, and no one's sleeping on the Buckeyes coming into this last visit, as there's plenty of reasons why I could see him going to Ohio State as well. But who knows? Watch. He'll pick Michigan and Alabama, and I could just be wrong. But I think it's right now Notre Dame and Florida and Ohio State it'll be one of those 3.
With Ohio State getting that last visit this weekend, are you a big believer in last visit love?
I think it's real, but you also, when you're getting the last visit and it's a few days before signing day, you got to hope that the kid's mind isn't made up and it's just not a token visit. I don't think that's the case here with Petit-Frere, but I think that if Nick comes in and really fits in with the players on the team and feels like it's an environment that he can be successful in as a student and as a football player around like-minded guys, then he goes home and makes the decision with his mom and coach, and the trust that he has with Coach Schiano, the trust that Nick's coach has with Coach Schiano, and if they believe that Ohio State's the place for Nick to achieve everything he wants to as a football player while doing so as a student, I mean, this is a big opportunity for Ohio State. And I think that if you look at Ohio State's roster, they beat Notre Dame for a lot of kids that are Notre Dame-type kids. And Nick's going to really fit in with those guys, the Jordan Fullers of the world, the Dallas Gants of the world. There's a bunch of them, Jalen Gill. I mean, Ohio State, they have a great culture in their locker room right now, and I think Nick's going to respond to it. And so we'll see what happens. I don't know where he's going to go. My crystal ball is on Notre Dame. It was originally on Florida. I thought 90 minutes away from home. Him and his mom are extremely tight. Mom's a successful lady. But maybe he wants to go spread his wings and go to the Midwest at a Notre Dame, Michigan, or Ohio State. Maybe Alabama is what he's looking for. I don't know. I think Ohio State's got a shot, though. I don't think this is just a token visit. I think that he thought hard about who he wanted to take official visits to. So he could have went to Stanford. He could have went to Auburn. He could have went to Georgia. He could have went anywhere he wanted. Miami and Clemson were swinging late, but so he in Ohio State always knew they were going to get an official. I mean, so they've been in it. They've been consistent with them for years, and so we'll see what happens in this last week.
The last visit theory I ask also because the other tackle that is the apple of Ohio State guy, Rasheed Walker, his official visit setup was always in limbo and has now been solidified, and it sounds like Herb on Wednesday and then James Franklin on Thursday. Does that affect you've been one of the long-standing crystal ball Ohio State Rasheed Walker guys. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I do believe in that a little bit. So I think that if you're Ohio State, James Franklin's getting the last word in person. But let's be honest, Urban Meyer is going to talk to Rasheed Walker again. It just isn't going to be in his living room. James Franklin's going to talk to Rasheed Walker again after Thursday, I would assume. Just not going to be in his living room. So how did Rasheed feel around those guys when they were at his house, I think is an important part here late, because I think that if his mind was made up, he would already have given his commitment. And so I think that it's close between the two, and he's going to go with who he feels the most comfortable with, and because he thinks that he can compete at both places at a high level. So who does he enjoy being around more, I think, is what the decision is going to come down to. And his official visit to Ohio State was about getting him around the players. He had been to Ohio State like 6 times before. He knows everything about Ohio State, but he didn't know how he fit in with the players, and I think that went well. But it also went well at Penn State, fit in well there. They've done a great job recruiting him. There's no doubt in my mind Penn State led early for Rasheed Walker. So we'll see. Again, Ohio State's in some tough ones. They're in some tight ones, not tough ones. They're in some tight ones, and they got a shot to pull them out.
Tavion Thomas, the running back out of Dunbar, bubbled up over the weekend. It now sounds like there is a spot for him in the class. I'll just tell you what we're hearing. What we hear is that there is an issue with academics. He has a chance to get eligible. If he doesn't, they'll probably JUCO him for half the year and bring him in. Have you heard anything different than that?
No, I think that he wouldn't have decommitted from Oklahoma if he wasn't trying to go to Ohio State. So everything he's doing now is to ultimately be a Buckeye.
Yep, agreed. Another guy, another in-state guy that we thought might end up at Ohio State. You think differently now based on the word that's on the street?
Well, I've always had Kentucky. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're talking about top 247 linebacker Chris Oats. I needed Chris Oats to come for the official visit. And once he did, we said last week, Thayer Munford situation, then they'll get him.
You needed him to come for the official visit. Hold on a sec. You needed him to come for the official visit to Ohio State.
Correct, for me to then believe that he was going to be a Buckeye. So Thayer Munford type situation there, high upside recruit. Ohio State pushed late. They landed him. I think they would have done the same for Chris Oats. But Bill Green, one of our Ohio State insiders on 24/7 Sports, called me this morning and filled me in on a development that he's not expecting Oats to be on campus this weekend. So I'll just continue to ride my Kentucky forecast as it stands right now. But again, next Wednesday is only 6 days away, but that's a long way away in the recruiting world this time of year. So I guess we'll see if there's any more developments with Chris Oats. But with Bill's information this morning, I'm just stuck with Kentucky until I knew what Ohio State was going to do there.
Well, we appreciate the changes because we talk about the same 6 or 7 dudes every week, and we get to talk about new stuff because they do change it up. So in some respects, it's not that bad. Let's talk a little bit about this name has come up, and speaking of a name that's going to come up routinely over the next X months or so, that's Zach Harrison, 2019 defensive end from the Columbus area. 24/7 Sports will release an updated 2019 rankings today, and you have a feature story coming out on Zach. Obviously, it would be a shock to everyone in Columbus if he didn't end up a Buckeye. What are we talking about here in terms of a prospect?
Well, he's arguably the number one player in the country. We've said that over and over. He's number 3 right now. I think he's trending up in our rankings, and so we'll see this afternoon. But he's unique. I mean, 6'5", 6'6", 240 pounds that ran a 4.6 laser time 40 with a 35-inch plus vertical leap in the summer. And then, quite frankly, he doesn't give a damn about recruiting, rankings. Don't text Zach Harrison if you're a college coach often. He's not about that. He's not about he's focused on trying to be as normal as possible. He's not consumed by any of the process. When he gets an offer, he doesn't tweet out 3 graphics to go along with it. He again, isn't going to be one that's going to revel in the process and really make these coaches work harder than they have to. Sometimes, like, these kids will go on official visits, order a steak, and then order a steak to go just because they can. The coaches are hosting aren't going to say, you know what I mean? Like,
that's horrible.
He's never going to be like that. He's not that guy. It's going to be about a genuine connection with the coaches that are recruiting him. And he likes Ohio State. He likes Wisconsin. He likes Penn State. He likes Notre Dame. He likes Michigan. I think he's intrigued by Clemson now. But the schools, the recruitment of Zach Harrison isn't going to be an arms race. It's going to be who does he feel like he fits in with. It's going to be similar to Nicholas Petit-Frere, except they have different personalities. Nicholas Petit-Frere is a little more laid back, where Zach Harrison is serious. He is a serious guy, and he's an intense guy. He's an intense competitor. He's an intense guy in the classroom. I'm sure he's laid back with his friends, but he doesn't show that when he's not with it. He doesn't show that when I've been around him. I've been around him 3 times, you know. He's a very intense individual. He's a hardworking, honor roll student. And then obviously he's a freak athlete, and he improved from his sophomore to his junior year. He improved from the opening regional to the opening finals. So he's got that competitive gene to him, and so I don't see any way that he's not a great player on the next level. And I think he'll go to Ohio State. It's 15 minutes away, but it's not a slam dunk because he's so unique that he is genuinely interested in those other schools, and he has visited them several times. And so with that, college coaches don't need to they know that they're in it with him, and because he's shown up on their campuses, they know the relationship is there. So it'll be interesting the strategy schools take in recruiting Zach Harrison, because he's not your run-of-the-mill recruit. Like, I'm not mad at these kids for loving the process. They get to go through it once. How awesome is it to have all these coaches calling you and fawning over you and wooing you and courting you? It's human nature to enjoy it. But Zach Harrison's not normal in that regard. He's a different individual. He's not about that. He is about his own tasks at hand.
Well, he's also from the same town, basically, as Bill Kurlick, so I think we know who to blame if he doesn't come to Ohio State. We appreciate Steve stopping by. It's been fast and furious, and it will only be more of this up until signing day. Keep it locked in here, Bucknutters.
Take care, guys. Thanks, Dan.